Hey everybody, I've wanted to do a long form video on the Ukraine-Russia thing for a few days now because I'm seeing so much fucking stupidity online about the whole situation. It's just too depressing. I can make a long form video with a script and all that and just cover all the points, but I figured I'd cover this new post from Adam something on YouTube, because the thing about YouTube, if you're not subscribed to certain users, you're not going to get their community updates, and you can't really share posts off of YouTube, which is really frustrating. Like, you can't even save screenshots that they post on their YouTube posts. So I figured I'd just read off of his update on the Ukraine situation right now, because it's pretty cool. I've only read part of this so far, so bear with me here. The offensive is slowly becoming a disaster show for the Russians. According to local sources, Russian soldiers are knocking on local stores and villages in the northeast, wanting to buy food, fuel, and booze, quote, for whatever money. There are reports of tankers going around with empty fuel canisters asking for fuel. Also, there is looting of local stores by Russian soldiers. Also, in other places, things are looking increasingly grim for the Russians. As I've said before, they intended this to be a blitzkrieg, which obviously didn't happen. At the start of the offensive, their primary objectives were the following. 1. Take out Ukrainian comms and break the chain of command via a series of preemptive missile strikes. 2. Break through the Donbass line of demarcation and press westward, link up with troops crossing the border north of the line. 3. Encircle Kharkiv and pacify the local defenses and or force a quick surrender. 4. Break out of Crimea and press westward towards Odessa and eastward towards Mariupol. The latter group was to link up with the troops breaking through the demarcation line, encircle Mariupol, and establish a land passage between Russia and Crimea. 5. Quickly take over the northern cities of Chernihiv and Sumy, then proceed towards Kiev. Apologies if I'm butchering these names. 6. Take Hostomel Airport next to Kiev and use it to land elite paratroopers, then as a staging ground for the siege of Kiev. 7. Link up approaching forces and encircle Kiev, then force a surrender. These were the Russian plans. Roughly speaking, out of these 7 goals, 0 were achieved. 1. Ukrainians got intel in time about the incoming missile strikes and shuffled everything around. Consequently, Russian missile strikes only had limited effect. The Ukrainian chain of command and much of their hardware remained operational. 2. The Donbass demarcation line holds still. Russians couldn't break through anywhere. Moreover, the Russians breaking through above the line were pushed back by Ukrainians, who launched a counterattack, with Russian forces fleeing back towards Russia. 3. The Kharkiv encirclement failed. Russians got bogged down. That's where they suffered their first significant losses. Kharkiv is on Ukrainian hands even now. 4. While the southern breakout from Crimea was initially successful, Russians were once again held up at Kherson and Melitopol, thus couldn't advance much or link up with any other groups. Consequently, the Crimea land bridge project failed. 5. Russians got bogged down both around Sumy and Chernihiv. In the end, they decided to bypass the two cities together and move towards Kiev instead. 6. Russians first took Hostomel Airport with a large helicopter deployment, which was considered reckless at best by military experts. Later, Russian paratroopers were dropped in, who were considered their elite forces. Ukrainians managed to defeat them and kick them out of the airport, which is a huge loss of face for the Russian army. 7. Troops from the northeast and northwest are trying to link up for an assault on Kiev while bypassing cities, but in the process are taking losses due to Ukrainian harassment. As of the writing of this, Russians are still not ready for encirclement, let alone siege. Currently, the indiscriminate shelling of Kiev is underway instead. We can draw the following conclusions. Russians grievously underestimated the Ukrainian defense forces. The Russian army was given very unrealistic objectives they couldn't complete, suggesting strong political pressure instead of rational planning. Russian missile strikes and air forces are very poorly organized, therefore ineffective. With such overwhelming air superiority, they should have already decimated Ukrainian defenses. This did not happen so far. Russian logistics are very poorly organized, as illustrated by the info in the beginning. Soldiers' morale is low and lack essential supplies such as food or fuel. Putin is slowly realizing the extent of the problem. As a sign of this, he called on the Ukrainian army to rise up against their government and told Kiev he's ready for negotiations. As a rule of thumb, you don't do this when your victory is certain. The more time passes, the more desperate Russians get, and the more brutish methods they'll resort to, such as the aforementioned indiscriminate bombing of cities. This, in turn, causes massive discontent both at home and among the troops. Even according to Russian propaganda, their troops are there to liberate Ukrainians from the, quote, evil Nazi junta. But it's the Nazis who are in Ukraine, right? Yeah, this kind of rhetoric, it's not Nazi-esque at all. Not to murder their Ukrainian brethren. This is where the myriad cross-border familial and cultural connections seriously backfire for Putin. Amazing. Like, I'm reacting to this as I'm reading it, and it's amazing to see. Russia's losing. That's the takeaway. Ukraine is holding strong, and fuck yes for that. I could have just sat here and just complained about how insane it is that people who consider themselves leftists were downplaying the Russian invasion, were dismissing it, calling it a false flag, unable to cope with the reality. Any excuses they could have made, or any excuses that they were making that, there are Nazis in Ukraine. There's not Nazis in Russia? I guess we better, whatever. It's just mindless. But everybody go subscribe to Adam Something on YouTube. He posts on there constantly. These posts don't become videos, but they're still very much important because he's following the situation closely. Like, he's in tune with it, and he's constantly providing updates. The fact is, this is what Russia's doing is desperate, and it's imperialist. Putin is a fascist, and I really hope the Russian people rise up against him. Like, this is unbelievably uncalled for. It was unprovoked. His excuses don't hold their weight in shit. They're dissolving. They're diluting in water. They're but yeah, so there's some good news today. Surprising that it's the tide is turning this quick. We can only hope it gets better from here and hope that Putin doesn't do anything insane. But we'll see. You guys all have a good one.